Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, a lawmaker warns Filipinos need to brace for the possibility of the Philippine peso continuing to weaken against the US dollar. Despite controversies and POGO-related crimes, some lawmakers prefer reforms over a permanent ban in the gaming services. And later, the House of Representatives passes the proposed 2023 budget, but some programs are unfunded. Albay Representative Joey Salceda joins us live. Some analysts and economists predict that the Philippine peso may hit the 60 peso mark against the US dollar. The peso has been plunging in recent days, averaging from about 58 to 59 pesos per dollar. A lawmaker urges the government to institute economic reforms and address the needs of poor Filipinos who are severely affected by the peso performance. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Albay Representative Joey Salceda. Congressman Salceda, welcome back to the source. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, good morning, Pinky.
Sir, the peso ended at 58.97 versus the US dollar yesterday. Let's try to understand first the situation. Is the peso falling because of a weak economy or domestic factors, or is it simply because the dollar is just getting stronger?
The usual answer, it would be both. But what is the driving force right now? Kasi if it's some of our structural weaknesses, then it should have been falling after all. But right now, what's pushing it really is the fact that the US has essentially, during the pandemic, released about 6 trillion in money money supply that they need to bring back kasi nagpalabas sila ng napakalaking pera na wala naman pong output. So ito ay nagpo-produce po ng inflation sa buong mundo, kaya gusto nila mapabalik sa kanila pong target na 2%. So how much will it take them to get inflation back to 2%? I think they need about an additional 400 basis points of increases, and that will push the peso to 65 basically.
Mm-hmm. So is that why there was a report in maybe over a week ago, that you were saying that the peso could actually fall to either a 65 or 68 peso level?
Opo. Tinignan ko naman kasi yung mga cathartic periods natin sa Pilipinas kung saan may very visible driving force. Pwede nga magsimula nung mag-Philip first, tapos lipat tayo ng decontrol, panahon po ito ni Macapagal. Yung peso po nag-depreciate ng 49. So kung yun ang gagamitin, aabot tayo ng 73.80. Pero nung Marcos naman na pre-export devaluation, bumagsak tayo ng 41, so aabot tayo ng 70. Kung titingnan natin yung Aquino assassination, bumagsak tayo ng 58, aabot tayo ng 78. Kung yung Noble coup, 60 pesos. Kung Asian financial crisis, aabot tayo ng 67. Kung yung EDSA 2, mini revolution, aabot tayo ng 61. So ang average na ay 68. So basically, you have a range for me because I don't think the US has already done, nagawa na nila yung kailangan nila para may balik nila yung kanilang sariling inflation to 2%. At mismo po ang ECB, yung Euro naman, nagsasabi na ang kanilang priority ay hindi growth kundi controlling inflation.
Okay, so with that in mind, what can we do? What can the Philippine government do to siguro avert the further weakening of the peso?
Ay, wala ka na masyadong magagawa. Dapat tanggapin mo yan as a given. at gawin mo na lang kung paano unang-una mapasiguro na may pagkain ng lahat ng tao. So that's the first thing, because 25% of our entire food supply is actually imported and therefore very susceptible to the peso. So immediately, yung ginagastos po ng mga lowest 70% will increase by 5%. So yun ang kailangan natin pong pasiguraduhin, that there is food on the table. You know, in periods, in crisis periods like this, the first thing is you assure is really to pasiguraduhin na yung ating po food supply or food security, or in simple language is agriculture.
Opo. So are you saying that we are at a crisis period?
Hindi naman crisis, kasi ito na sinasabi ko lang, may kumbaga sa Albay, kami naman ay binabagyo naman lagi eh. Pero dapat yung pinaghahandaan namin na pagdating ng bagyo, may pagkain kami doon sa bahay, at yung aming pong bubong ay may bato na. Ang ibig ko sabihin, ano ba gagawin mo na may ganito? Because I think for most economies, it's a given that the US needs to 5% disinflation. And that 5% disinflation means a lot of dollar appreciation. So which means peso depreciation. So ang kung ganyan po na katulad sa amin, na given sa amin na may bagyo, puputok ang bulkan, ano bang gagawin mo?
So important, it's quite important when you said that 25% of our food supply is imported. Let's just put a balance here, Kong Joey, if you will, no? So yung kasing paglakas ng dollar ay nakakatulong sa mga OFW sa kanilang remittances pag kanilang inuwi dito sa Pilipinas para tulungan yung kanilang mga pamilya, hindi ho ba? But then that also, on the flip side, affects businesses. Sabi niyo na nga, 25% of food supply is imported, hindi ho ba? And a lot of other businesses actually import products abroad, hence magiging mas mahal po ang kanilang ini-import. So how does one strike a balance between siguro yung weakening peso and the strengthening of the dollar?
Actually, may konting problema din tayo dyan. Kasi nga, ang imports natin umaabot na 139 billion. Tapos yung ating exports ay umaabot lang ng 107. So meron tayong 39 billion dollars na talagang kailangan mapandingan. Nasusuporta naman po ito ng ating pong mga BPO, ng ating OFW. Pero pag tinitingnan nyo, kahit yan po, may red flag na. Kasi yung ating pong BOP, balance of payments, is at, right now, it's at about 8% of total GDP. That's not very good signal, because that is probably one of the highest over the past 10 years. So, ibig sabihin, may $7 billion, $8 billion tayo na balance of payments. Although we have a very strong GIR, kasi nung panahon po nung pandemic, umutang tayo ng mura. So, kaya napalakad po ng ating GIR. So, kung in pursuit of your question, how far can you push pa the OFW? In other words, our dollar earners. Ang dollar earner natin, simple lang. OFW, BPO, tapos mining, which is now the largest non-BPO, non-electronic exports of the Philippines. And then, of course, you would have tourism, basically. So you need to push these dollar earners. But I don't think that would be enough at this point, because it would take medium-term effort. It will have you will get their positive impacts in the medium term pa.
So very important is when you said that kailangan paghandaan natin ito. Inihalin tulad nyo nga ho sa kapag may darating na bagyo or puputok mo yung bulkan, kailangan maghanda tayo. What should government do to be able to provide affordable food for the Filipino people?
Kaya nga, well, maganda nga dahil ang pinakamataas pong increase from almost 130 naging 180 yung ating pong investment po sa agriculture. But again, it will take time. So pero ngayong taon pa lang, that is in 2023, wherein the biggest increase in agricultural budget is in the budget. So but preliminarily, I think we have secured our rice. I think kaso every Tom, Dick, and Harry in our agriculture in our bahay kubo essentially yung lahat na halos lahat ng ating kinakain may imported portion yon. So yung isa po nagawa po ng ating Pangulo ay siyempre na siya po ay napasiguro na yung ating rice supply kung mga kontrata at nakapag-angkat na po tayo. Sana pumasok na yung ating urea dahil nasa planting season na tayo. Kailangan natin po ang fertilizer para mapasiguro po ang bumper crop next year.
When we talk about the rice, Kong Joey, please tell us, are we going to expect an increase in the prices ng pagbenta po ng bigas o mananatili ho ito at the same price until the year end?
Pinag-aralan ko aakyat yan ng mga 3 to 5 pesos kasi gawa nga number one, externally, you have the Yangtze drought for almost 80 days already. And downstream, you have the Mekong River, which is being affected by it. And then, ito pong sinabi na mismo po ng ating DA Senior Undersecretary Panganiban, na 20% ng ating pong source of rice has been affected by carding. So essentially, we would expect an increase in rice prices, and that is virtually half of the food that is in our total food basket in the consumer price index.
So asahan na po natin yan, yung pagtaas ng presyo ng bigas, sabi niyo po yon. What about other food items?
Aangat sila dahil po bumabagsak ang peso. Dahil dati, nagsimula talaga to last year, mga June, nagsimula po yung peso, yung recent bottom natin was at 47.56 in June 4, 2021. So basically from there till now, you would expect some increases due to currency adjustments in at least first dahil sa gasolina, dahil although pababa na siya, pero still it's higher year on year. And of course, you have 25% of your entire food
supply.
Essentially, they are imported, and therefore they will reflect ang for every based po sa aming po pag-aaral, for every 1% increase for every 1% the pass-through between peso depreciation is between 0.1 to 0.3%. In other words, let's say 0.2, so at least kalahati. So kung mag-depreciate yan ng let's say by 30%, 30 times nag-30% na. So you would expect that on those items in our basket that is imported, you would expect at least mga pag-angat po ng 15% dun po sa mga items na yon. Remember na I'm talking about the food basket being susceptible. 24.9% of all food is imported. So ibig sabihin, yung at least that portion of that food basket will reflect the increases in the peso depreciation.
And before we go on a break, which items are you talking about?
Bigas, basically, corn. Ngayon, mas mataas na yung corn sa labas kaysa sa loob. Trigo, halos lahat po, yung buong kantang bahay kubo, kahit po yung lahat ng halaman doon ay talagang lahat po ay imported na ngayon.
Okay.
At smuggled pa.
Okay. Congressman Joey, we need to take a very short break. We will be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Albay Representative Joey Salceda. Congressman, there was a report from the Philippine Statistics Authority that said that the average income of a family annually fell by 2%. That was an average of about 313,000 in a year in 2018. Bumaba na po daw yan ng 307,000 in 2021. Ang sabi nga po ng Ibon Foundation, this is a pinch in falling income and rising prices. So the question, sir, is how will this affect the spending power of the Filipinos? And siguro ganito na lang, sir. How long are prices, how much longer can we expect prices to increase, and when can we expect things to get better?
Well, pag tinuloy-tuloy ng US, maabot na nila yung tinatawag nilang target para po mapababa yung inflation sa 2%. You would expect the oil prices to come down, all the other prices. Pero just to put yung sinabi po ng PSA o ng Ibon, alam mo, ang tunay na hindi napapansin, the real killer right now on ordinary families is the fact we're spending 54 billion more a month. Times 12, that's about almost 700 billion in incremental power cost due to the increase in coal from $70 to $400. So that's the real killer right now, and that's not being discussed. For example, in some electric co-ops, they started with 9 and they're now ending up with 17 to 19 pesos per kilowatt hours. That's the real killer actually right now. So the 2% that further aggravates the situation. But what needs to be, what the government needs to confront really, and is really how to address high power costs, not only because it's affecting our consumer, it's also affecting our global competitiveness.
Yeah, and how should government address that?
Alam mo, laki-laki kasi, sobra. Halimbawa, nakikita mo yung away dyan sa ERC ng Meralco at saka ng San Miguel, di ba? Kasi yung kontrata nila na wala akong pass-through ng fuel conversion. Akala kasi ng mga Pilipino, ang coal hindi na aakyat. Umakyat from $70 to $400. So, I think there are suggestions that the government should give financing should finance at least for the next 6 months yung mga bills, kasi marami dyan mapuputulan dahil hindi nila kakayanin bayaran, you know, dahil nga po dyan na you will have a 700 billion punch on the purchasing power of the ordinary consumers. So I think there are suggestions for Land Bank to finance all the consumers, but my own thinking is that this thing has been with us even before this increase in power costs and this depreciation of the dollar. The Philippines has been number 2 in terms of power costs. So what my real suggestion is, for all these excesses in the WESM and all these stranded coal power plants, probably we can put up, let's say, some instrument like a CB-ball or a PSAM2, where we put at least about 1.3 trillion, including everything, all the excesses due to the oligopolistic nature of our power sector, and then let's kumbaga stretch it for the next 100 years. So in other words, yung power cost adjustment will be pushed I'm using here an extreme, but essentially what I'm trying to say is
Extended.
that we need to stretch the payment for this very huge
Okay.
power cost adjustment for ordinary Filipinos.
All right. Okay. Kong, again, I need to take a very short break. We need to talk about POGOs and of course the budget, but we will be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb, our source today, Congressman Joey Salceda. Sir, let's talk about POGOs. I know that your stand here, if I'm not mistaken, is to regulate and not to ban POGOs. Just quickly, sir, tell us why.
Ano ba yung problema? Ang problema ngayon ay may illegal POGO. Hindi siya POGO kasi they're not sanctioned by POGCOR. Number two will be illegal aliens. So I think the proper approach there is really for the NBI or the DOJ and the BID to essentially deport sila in an orderly way. And number three are, and which is the biggest one, are really notorious or notorious headhunters or recruiters. Kasi pa yung mga nakikita mo na dalawang bagay, no? Yung nangyari sa Pasig, mga 200 yon. Yung nangyari doon sa Angeles, mga 200 yon. May nag-recruit sa isang POGO na 200, dinala dyan sa Pasig. Siyempre, nagreklamo po yung POGO na nawala ng kasi since the pandemic, ang China has been very strict in allowing their citizens from not migrating, from working abroad. So basically, ang basic input dyan sa POGO are Mandarin-speaking Chinese. So what we have essentially witnessed, some people want to call it kidnapping, but that's essentially a recruiter brought them to another POGO operator and of course hinabol. At yun din na nangyari po dun sa Angeles. So ang hindi ko sinasabi, ang mas worried nga ako dyan dahil may mga human rights din po yan, mga illegal, let's call them either illegal aliens or especially these people na nasangkot dahil po nga dyan sa away ng mga POGO na the one here in Pasig is between two legitimate POGOs actually. Meron nag-recruit doon sa Cavite, dinala dyan sa Pasig. So, hinabol po kasi ang hirap-hirap maghanap. Alam mo nung kataas-taasan niya, mga 478,000 yan. Ngayon, ang POGO na lang, ang workers sa POGO na ay nasa 45,000. And almost half of that is Filipino already.
So, but is this a point that needs to be recognized, sir? That Senator Pimentel was saying that to simplify this is to ban. Sinasabi po ni Senator Pimentel, the way to simplify this issue by banning POGOs is to actually ban POGOs kasi nagagamit din daw po yung mga legal POGOs ginagamit na front para sa mga illegal POGOs. Do you agree, sir?
Di lalo yung mga illegal, di lalo sila nag-illegal, they will go underground. And then you will just worsen the so-called social cost of POGOs. Because it is enabled, nung sinara natin yung isabong, lumabas yung e-bingo. Ngayon, puro e-casino. Kahit buksan mo lang po yung iPhone mo, ang dami kang mahanap dyan na mga, essentially, mga gambling platforms that essentially are born because of the digitalization. So, question, can you stop digitalization? You can't. And can you stop gambling from partaking of digitalization? You can't. So the best thing there is really, alam mo, meron tayong Republic Act 11590, the only law in the world that essentially regulates POGO. It's a tax law and one of the most brutal tax law actually because it presumes their salary and therefore for every POGO worker, they have to pay 12,500 per month for 12 months. And then they have to pay 5% instead of the usual 2%, and they still have to pay 2%, so they pay 7%. So essentially, even from a regulatory point of view, the best way to address this is by regulation and taxation rather than by simple prohibition.
There was also a report that I read, no, Congressman, that the Lichu property consultants was saying, we of course understand when POGO was big here in the country, that obviously drove also rental fees of houses and condominiums. Lichu property consultants was saying that the Philippine economy could actually lose about 200 billion pesos annually if the local online gaming industry players are shut down. Is this an accurate number?
I would think so. It's about 128.5 based on my disaggregation of the annual office rent, annual household rent, electricity payment, fit-out cost, commissary meal, total spending by the employees. So in other words, and these are essentially paid for by money. So hindi ko sinasabi na constructive export to, pero actually ang nagpa-funding po nito yung pera na nagsusugal sa POGO from other countries, because by definition it's overseas online gaming basically. So right. It is overseas money that is playing in the Philippines.
Opo. Quickly, the year 2020, if I'm not mistaken, sir, we, according to Secretary Bendiocno, we generated about 7 billion pesos of revenue from POGO. The year after that, that was cut in half to about 3 billion. In your estimate, well, I don't know if this would be a fair question because it also depends no ilan po ang POGO players. Pero how much should we generate? How much money can we generate if POGOs continue in the country with improved and siguro regulated?
More than 6 billion, because in January we already earned 541 billion from POGO because we passed that law and it was signed, the IR was signed in December 21, 2021. So 6 billion. Actually, when this law was being discussed, that's in 2019, and now POGO is starting to get revived, although the problem there is that there's not enough Mandarin speaking workers. We were supposed to earn 42 billion from POGO. I mean, under the law that was created, Republic Act 11590, which was actually already confirmed, or how do you call that, by the Supreme Court as being valid, you know, that Republic Act 11519. We are supposed to earn 42 billion from POGO, but for this year, we will earn more than 6 billion. Even with that 45,000 POGO level of POGO workers we have. We started with 1.6 million office space. Now we're down to 1 million and even lower, I think, because ang isang bagay dyan na sinasabi ni Lichu, nung magsimula tong mga POGO, alam mo ba na POGO nagsimula sa Pilipinas year 2000 pa sa CESA, at nagbabayad na sila doon ng 7% per year sa CESA pero hindi sa PAGCOR. So nung niregularize natin through PAGCOR supervision, doon lumaki yung POGO. So sa itong 1 million na natitira ngayon, ito yung mga nagpirma, mga POGO na nagpirma po sa ating po mga developers na okay, we will build for you but you have to commit to 5 to 7 years. So if we ban POGO, that essentially cuts down this entire 1 million square meters of office space.
Got it.
Na were developed for POGO. So a ban will immediately have a big impact on the contractual obligations of the POGO operators.
We've run out of time. And we can't talk about the budget anymore. I hope at another time. Congressman Joey Salceda, sir, thank you so much for your time.
Maraming salamat, Pinky.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.